everybody, we're going to be doing something called endo or exo topic drawing. Endotopic, exotopic. And this just deals with the fact that a line is just something we invented and it's not really there. When you think you see a line, it's really an edge between light and dark, and I have a choice which side I decide to fill in. So if it's on the exoskeleton, it's one that's on the outside. Endoskeleton is one that's on the inside. So what I'm going to do, and Chandler's just going to draw with me, is I'm going to make something pop out by drawing around it a little bit. So I'm going to take this shape here, and I'm going to be suggesting a circle with it without actually drawing a circle. So what I'm going to do here is I'll start here, and then if I create an edge here where maybe there's a shadow here that goes around like this. By the time this shadow gets really light over here, maybe I want to play around with creating an edge here so this line comes along. Now you're starting to see the beginning of a sphere. Maybe that sphere needs a shadow. Now what I'm doing here is I'm imagining a sphere, and instead of drawing a line around it, I'm drawing light and dark shapes. If I were to draw a line around it, it would look cartoony. So what I want to do here, perhaps I want to make this just a little bit lighter. What I want to do here is not make it cartoony, but make it look like something real. So now I can take my eraser that just went someplace, and here we go. Sorry guys. I can take my eraser and clean it up. So one of the questions that you can play around with here is how much information was there before you could see the sphere. So it may be that you don't really have to draw the sphere at all, but that you could instead draw lights and darks bumping up against each other. Now here I'm going to make a smaller orange or something else, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do exo shading, shade outside of the circle, and then maybe down here I will suggest shading inside the circle. And so I'm playing around with this where I've done the inside edge of a circle, but over here it's the outside of that circle. Still on this circle, so I got to play with that a bit. So Chandler's going to jump in, and after he watched this play around with this idea right here while I talk, which I'm sure he enjoys doing, being put on the spot like that. No growth without pain, right? Now, what he's doing here is when you first start off with charcoal, you may want to go ahead and outline that shape all the way. And that's okay too, like if you do this outline, but just outline it really lightly, so all you need to do, you want to get rid of the line. So if I were to outline this like this, I'm going to want to shade it in and get rid of the line, because lines are 2D and shapes are 3D, and it'll make it look a lot more dimensional. So I get to the point sometimes where I have to kind of play around with shading outside versus shading inside. Now, on this, it can be really helpful to use your eraser to give you a little bit of highlights or to clean up. Charcoal shading is not charcoal smudging, and so it can really help sometimes if you want to try to get a feel of a light or a dark, to go ahead and put that dark in and then clean up the dark shape with your eraser. And then you can put in perhaps a medium shape if you feel like you need a little bit more shadow in there. And what will happen is I'm smearing this shadow in a very specific moon-like shape, so the shape of the sphere doesn't look dirty, it looks very intentional. Now while Chandler is getting his going, you can probably see how he's experimenting with the direction of the stroke. One thing that's kind of fun on doing this kind of stuff is to see how little you can put in before somebody sees what you're drawing. So for instance, if I just did this, is that enough for you to start seeing the coffee cup? And here I'm using Endo inside shading, and here I'm using EndoExo outside shading. I can also have inside highlights and outside highlights. So when you're working with charcoal, a lot of times people get light shapes and dark shapes mixed up. And if you just realize that anytime I make a line, that there's not really a line there. What it is instead is a series of light and dark shapes playing against each other. And there aren't any lines at all. So if I see lines, I've got to decide, do I blend it on the outside edge or do I blend it on the inside edge? And whether or not I blend the outside edge or the inside edge, and then with highlights, see it the same way. I'm going to clean up maybe the edge here. And you can see that very quickly it goes from being a flat two-dimensional object to being at least a little bit, I could work on that a little more, at least a little bit more 3D. So Chandler likes to play with stuff there and see what happens when one plays against another. Now he's got two spheres. It looks like one sphere is underneath maybe a sheet of paper, or that the paper's been cut and this sphere is going under that line. So whether he draws on this side of the line or that side of the line, and then if a circle emerges here, like how much of this do I have to like add to it before you start seeing a circular composition? Like you don't have to add, you can even leave areas like this which are engaging to the viewer because it makes the viewer have to like fill it in. So sometimes it can be kind of fun to see how little you have to put in. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to erase out. And so when you're getting ready to work with charcoal, be aware that you maybe have been taught to see in lines, but that there are no lines, and you want to look at which side of the line is that light or dark difference on. And that will improve your drawing. So good luck, and this is always real fun to play with. See how Chandler can't stop? Works for me.